Who could forget that moment when Colborn reads out Sam William Henry, 582, to Manitowoc County Dispatch Operator Lynn. She confirms missing person Teresa Halbach, and he responds, 99 Toyota. Welcome to No Crime, No Time. I'm Danny, also known as RD, and this is your Blackout. We're going to be talking a lot about November 3rd, 2005. So Teresa Halbach was never seen again, nor was Carmen Boutwell, after October 31st of 2005. And it's 3 days later, on the same day, only 4.5 hours after Carmen's death, Karen Halbach reported her daughter Teresa missing, stating that she hadn't seen her since Monday at home. For the record, according to incident report ICA 0511 03 009213, dated November 3rd, 2005. The time of the call was 2:51:56 p.m. and the incident was listed as death. Now, if that was the only concerning error regarding the reports on November 3rd of Teresa Halbach and her missing persons case, it would be a lot easier to overlook and say, well, that was just a simple mistake. However, a second separate Manitowoc County Sheriff's Office summary report regarding Teresa lists her described as kidnapped. Also dated November 3rd, listed evidence seized. And what evidence did they say they seized on November 3rd? They describe a Toyota RAV4, sport Toyota RAV4, and the color dark green utility. Now, who's writing these reports? Well, one of the individuals is none other than David Remiker. You got it, Detective Remiker. Now, this report of the dark green sport Toyota RAV4 seized as evidence by Manitowoc on November 3rd, 2005, happens to coincide very neatly with that phone call that Sergeant Colborn made to dispatch. And you have to wonder, was he actually looking at the dark green RAV? And was he reading the plates? In Remiker's summary report, he states that he was asked to assist on a missing persons case of Teresa Halbach on November 3rd. He was made aware that Sergeant A. Colborn had made prior contact with Stephen Avery, one of the other 2 known appointments at that time, before Teresa disappeared. The other known appointment at that time was the Zipperer residence. So let's dig into a little bit about where everybody was, what they say they were doing, and where that puts us in the timeline. So let's indulge a little bit into what Colborn's role was. So at some point around 4-ish, possibly 5-ish, not sure of the time, Colborn goes over to interview Chuck Avery. You heard me right, Chuck. So he goes to the Avery property, and he literally is looking for Chuck when Stephen approaches. Now, after he talks to Stephen, he leaves without talking to Chuck, without questioning Chuck. Was he no longer concerned about Chuck? And the other question that comes to mind is why he didn't want to interview Barb, being she was the van owner. The van was owned by Barbara Janda at the time, which was Steve's sister, Barb Avery. And Colborn never even thinks to question her. I find that very intriguing. So the 2 known appointments at that time on November 3rd was George Zipperer's and Stephen Avery's, which it really was Barb Janda's, but we'll leave it at that. And so Colborn has obviously went over and now has completed his interview with Stephen Avery. Skips Chuck completely. Where do we know that Colborn goes next? Well, it's quite easy to see the trail, and that is that Remiker reports in his summary report when he was asked to assist on the missing persons case of Teresa Halbach on November 3rd, he was made aware that Sergeant Colborn had made that contact with Stephen Avery. And then he goes on to say that Dietering and himself and Sergeant Colborn all meet at the Zipperer residence. But he never says where Colborn was. It never establishes that Colborn actually came in to the Manitowoc County Department, to the station, if you will. It just says Remiker just states he was made aware that Colborn had made prior contact with Stephen Avery, one of the 2 known appointments at that time that she had before her disappearance. It never really tells you that Colborn went to the station to meet Detective Remiker. It just says they met at Zipperer's. So when I started looking at this, they listed George Zipperer's address as 4433 Cord B, Manitowoc, Wisconsin, which actually, Cord B is County Highway B. So 4433 County Highway B, which is actually a Mishkot residence. And it's been established that Colborn was at Avery's place and made contact with Stephen regarding Halbach's visit prior to going to the Zipperers. And in referencing questioning George Zipperer, Remiker, I just want to make sure you understand this, only states that Investigator Dietering, Sergeant Colborn, and I went to that address. Doesn't mean they drove together. So is it possible Colborn actually left Stephen Avery's residence and went to the Zipperers? If he did, that's where I draw my question. So if Colborn drives his own squad car and is alone when he questions Stephen, is it possible he drove from the Avery property over to 4433 Cord B, Manitowoc? Because sometimes later, Colborn reports he responds to the Zipperers' residence, leaving from Avery's. If you did so en route to the Zipperers, you would take the quickest, most direct route, which happens to be Highway 147, and then you would take County Highway B. And you would literally drive right past the turnaround. That turnabout, where over 11 witnesses have claimed to see the missing girl's dark green vehicle abandoned on November 3rd. Isn't that interesting how Colborn, if he actually left Avery's and was heading to the Zipperer's residence after he interviewed, which makes sense because that's what they're doing, if he was going to go to the Zipperers, there's only the 2 roads to get there. Highway 147, and then you turn on the second road to County Highway B. And in doing so, you literally would have driven past the exact location that the green RAV was spotted abandoned on 147. Think back to the call. Sam William Henry, 582. Indeed, it would appear as though Colborn had the opportunity to find the dark green RAV at the turnaround on Highway 147 while en route to the Zipperer's residence. His dispatch called to Lynn, offering the plate number of the Halbach, and then pairing that up with the November 3rd evidence seized of an automobile described as Toyota RAV4, Sport Toyota RAV4, dark green utility, all adds up pretty neatly. In the background, you can faintly hear a voice in the dispatch call with Colborn. Now, some people say it says car is here or something like that. Some people disagree, say other things. But is it possible that the very way that car got there had something to do with the way that it all played out, knowing Colborn would pass that point and discover the car? Somebody had to play hide and seek, and somebody had to leave that turnabout and get very quickly to cover. Almost like have a place to go to without a vehicle so that they wouldn't get spotted. Well, Scott Tadich's house, his trailer, is sitting very close to that location, within a mile. I want to say it was an eighth of a mile. Later, investigator Link marks Scott Tadich's trailer abandoned, has it towed, and it's burned to the ground in Wausau, Wisconsin. To me, Colborn knew the license plate, and he identified the year of the vehicle with confidence to dispatcher Lynn. Yet, 2 days later, Pam Sturm supposedly finds the vehicle, and it's a whole new color. It's blue. She's even stunned by the color. But it's more blue than green. She literally says that. And the VIN number's been tampered with, and the plates are not on the vehicle. Dashboard bolts are removed. Is it possible that when that green RAV was seized, it had the original killer's DNA in it? The original victim DNA? And that wasn't going to help frame Stephen Avery at all, was it? So it really could be that Colborn drove right past the turnabout. I'll let you think on that. All right. I love you to the moon and back. See you again soon.